Testing microphone. Check. All right, looks like we're good. Good morning. Illinois in Focus Daily for this Wednesday, November 20th. I'm Greg Bishop. Thanks for taking the time with us each and every weekday morning, giving you a rundown of what to expect for the day and also a review of what happened yesterday. Legislators back in session in Springfield for the fall veto session. Will they be in tomorrow? It's a good question. They canceled last Thursday. But they got 2 days left of scheduled veto session. Some interesting stuff happening today. Not much happened yesterday. We'll touch base with a few things, especially on the House floor that came up, dealing with immigration in particular. But we'll also tackle Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson's news conference from yesterday. So stay tuned for that. But obviously with fall veto session, we got to take a preview of what's coming up because there's a lot that's going to be tackled today on campus and off campus in Springfield at the state capitol. So stay tuned. We'll get to that next here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily. Fall session at the Illinois State House continuing today. Not much activity yesterday, but we've got committees, we've got news conferences, and some expected action on the floor of each the House and Senate. We'll be watching it at thecentersquare.com. Be sure to wake up with the newsletter each and every weekday morning for the latest headlines. And also, be sure to wake up with us here with Illinois in Focus Daily to do a deep dive into some of these things. So what are legislators looking to do today? Well, they've got a House Elementary and Secondary Education Committee on Administration, Licensing, and Charter Schools that's set to meet in Springfield. What they're expected to discuss is, student-athlete transfer policies. So if you've got a student-athlete looking to transfer to another school, interesting to see how that may affect you. Of course, it's just a subject matter hearing, so we'll see what kind of discussions they have there. Then this morning, you've got state representatives with the Illinois Freedom Caucus. They're going to be holding a news conference later on to discuss the state's budget issues. If you recall, several weeks ago, the Office of Management and Budget from the governor's office, they released a report, 5-year projection, saying the state of Illinois is going to see a $3 billion plus deficit for the next fiscal year, and then another $3 or $4 billion after that the following year, and then up to 2030 for the 3 years prior, having $5 billion budget deficits. Total budget deficits over the 5-year projection, $22.2 billion, while the state looks to spend another $10 billion more by 2030. So the Freedom Caucus, a group of Republicans from across the state, including State Representative Brad Halbrook, State Representative Chris Miller, a variety of others, and I think they just added State Senator Andrew Chesney to that list of the Freedom Caucus. So we'll be talking about that today. Also today, you've got State Representatives David Freese, Bill Howder, and Charlie Meyer. They're set to discuss the exposure of individuals in Illinois' prison system to dangerous drugs. We talked with State Representative Adam Niemerg about this a few weeks ago. He was set to take a tour of Illinois prison facilities to delve into the issues they're hearing from staff, that drugs are being laced on paper and that paper correspondence is getting into prisons and the exposure to staff and inmates is dangerous. So we'll hear from the representatives about that as well. But then you've got the House Executive Committee. They're going to be holding a hearing on a couple of different Senate bills in the Illinois House where things are going to be gutted and replaced. So Senate Bill 688, carried by State Representative Jennifer Gahn Gershowitz out of Glenview, a Democrat, it's a gut and replace, and it impacts fees that are paid by private detectives, security, locksmiths, and fingerprint vendors. So gutting and replacing a bill to deal with fines, or not fines, but rather fees. I think like a $5 fee per client or something to that effect. Meanwhile, the House Executive Committee going to take up Senate Bill 3410, carried by State Representative Jay Hoffman. It is also a gut and replace bill, impacting a variety of acts, like the Illinois Commission on LGBTQ Aging. Apparently, they had a report due the March of 2023, and the changes in the law would essentially say that they're set to produce another report. So we'll see what that does. But it's not the only thing that Hoffman's legislation, gutting and replacing a bill, does. It also changes things in the Reimagined Public Safety Act, which was a large criminal justice reform bill, and a whole bunch of other changes to other acts as well, like, for instance, going through some park executive legislation. I was just pouring through this at 5 o'clock this morning. But a bunch of changes to, change a word him to individual, and you see that type of thing all over the place. So in a way, trying to get rid of some gendered language. But interesting to see a whole host of different acts impacted by this omnibus bill that Representative Hoffman's bringing to gut and replace a Senate bill in the House. Then midday, you've got the House on the floor and the Senate's going to be on the floor. And at 1 o'clock, you've got a Senate Executive Committee hearing. There's two bills in there. One would rename the Illinois Emergency Management Agency to the Illinois Emergency Management Agency and Office of Homeland Security, IEMA OHS. And it includes responsibilities with respect to nuclear and radiation safety. It also creates new cabinet-level positions. And then you have Senate President Don Harmon. He has a bill that would impact wages for employees with disabilities. Not the only thing going to be discussed at the state capitol today dealing with wages. You've got local activists in the labor community. They're going to be in Springfield Wednesday to push for the end of tipped wages. The One Fair Wage Group says legislators need to rally against the incoming Trump administration. The event that they plan includes a holiday turkey giveaway at a Springfield church. Now, they're pushing for the states to end tipped wages. Illinois' minimum wage is going to go up to $15 an hour, as is the tipped wage, which is less than the minimum wage. But that's because if you make a tipped wage, you get paid tips. And Republicans at the State House, they say that the state needs to make way for the possibility of no tips on taxes, which is a campaign pledge from President-elect Donald Trump. So clearly some interesting contrast to the things you're going to be hearing coming out of the Illinois State House today. Get to thecentersquare.com and be sure to stay up to date with what's going on with the latest headlines. And again, wake up with us here each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily, breaking down things happening impacting you, the taxpayer. So much more to come here each and every weekday morning with Illinois in Focus Daily. Of immigration still very much top of mind with President-elect Donald Trump looking to call a national emergency and use assets of the military to do mass deportations, something he confirmed earlier this week, and all kinds of reaction coming in from both sides of the aisle and both ends of the state. Welcome back. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Get the newscasts and the news headlines at thecentersquare.com. Wake up with us here with Illinois in Focus each and every weekday morning. All right, so let's get into the latest out of the State House, where they didn't really do much yesterday for fall veto session, but you had Republican State Representative Dan Calkins take to the House floor again yesterday to raise concerns he has of, the lack of cooperation he sees from Governor J.B. Pritzker for the incoming Trump administration.
Last week, Governor Pritzker decided he was going to take on the federal government. He publicly announced that he was going to challenge the federal government and the will of the people. That's an act of insurrection. That's what started the Civil War in South Carolina when the governor took on President Lincoln and the federal government. I ask you, please, if you have any influence with Governor Pritzker, please ask him to stand down. We can't win that battle. You can be right, maybe, but you cannot fight the federal government. And if the federal government decides to take up Governor Pritzker's challenge, we, all of us, every person in this state will be a loser, because we depend on the federal government for a lot of money, funds, waivers, tax money returned to this state for roads and highways, bridges. And if the federal government decides they want to punish Illinois, they want to punish Governor Pritzker for challenging our federal administration, every citizen in this state, your constituents, my constituents, are going to be severely impacted. So please, please ask Governor Pritzker, let's extend an olive branch to the federal government. I know one of your representatives said, maybe we do need to get these gangbang illegal aliens out of our state. Maybe we should cooperate with ICE to make our communities safer. Let's do that. Let's not play a game of chicken with the federal government, because it will not end well with the citizens of this state, your constituents and my constituents.
So, Representative Calkins, referencing a conversation we had with Democratic State Representative LaShawn Ford a couple of weeks ago after the election of Trump on Election Day, where Ford did indeed say we probably should go after the violent non-citizens, a pledge that Trump made. So Calkins raising the issue of the possibility of losing federal tax dollars if Illinois doesn't cooperate with the incoming Trump administration on a variety of things. And you got to imagine with the porous border as it's been and the extreme costs to the taxpayer, especially in a state like Illinois, a sanctuary state, those pressures continue to compound. And if you have a lack of federal dollars because of a lack of cooperation, well, Illinois' budget's going to get that much worse. Interesting to hear that. But right after Calkins made those statements, Democratic State Representative Dagmara Avelar took to her microphone to sound off and react to Calkins' message there.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think that one of the things that the previous person that talked about monies being lost, I wonder if he's also going to consider not getting the taxes of all the I-18 filers and undocumented people who continue to pull this economy forward. Thank you.
So she's using a line of debate that a lot of those who want more immigration or a pathway to citizenship, quote unquote, for undocumented migrants in the country, that they add to the tax base. I've heard statistics, 5% of the labor force is undocumented migrants, and all of the property taxes they're paying by way of maybe paying rent, or the sales taxes they pay, or other taxes they may ultimately pay to the state and federal governments if they do pay taxes. So clearly, a lot to be said about this, especially over the next 2 years, while Trump will have not just the White House, but he'll have a Republican-controlled Senate and House, and how they use the party of the purse to try to bring about compliance with Trump policies. Illinois, can we afford to lose any federal tax dollars? A question that is obviously going to come to a head pretty quick, as the former president, the 45th president of the United States, is set to become the 47th president of the United States. What times we live in. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning to get the latest, get the headlines at thecentersquare.com, and to get the podcast wherever you get podcasts.
as far as for immigration, absolutely. We're still a welcoming city. That did not change on November 5th. He is a threat to everything that is sensible. Go down that route. In fact, it would be small and soft. The president-elect should get big and large and strong like we are in Chicago.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson there during a pretty wide-ranging news conference Tuesday afternoon into the evening. Good morning, I'm Greg Bishop. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson holding a news conference, wide-open news conference. If you recall, last week, he had his proposed $300 million property tax increase shot down unanimously by Chicago City aldermen. And you also had a flood of citizens critical of the mayor, calling him everything from a criminal to a loser to a bully. Obviously, the mayor not getting any support from aldermen on that property tax issue. But he talked about how they have some movement on trying to stem a $1 billion budget deficit for the next fiscal year for the city that kicks in at the beginning of the year. And how are they going to plug that $1 billion deficit? Well, the mayor proposed a $300 million property tax increase. Again, aldermen voting that down. Here's the mayor talking about how they may have come to some agreement on some things.
We have produced a number of ideas that has created a level of interest that has been humbling, and I'm very grateful. We have reduced the property tax levy by $150 million. And we hope this productive collaboration pushes us to find more progressive revenue sources and more efficiencies that will balance our budget.
He's talked about the need for another measure that Chicago voters voted down, and that was the Bring Chicago Home measure, which would have had a property tax sales tax, so a surcharge on property tax sales over certain totals. And he said that would have helped raise millions of dollars for the city's homeless issues. But he was also asked a question about how the city plans to react in the city's budget to the incoming Trump administration.
Can you talk a little bit about, if possible, what your budget might include to address the new Trump administration and what they might do in terms of immigration or health care, i.e., COVID vaccination shots? Is that something that you're including in the budget?
Well, absolutely, we're including protections in this budget around a Trump administration. And I would take it one step further. I believe that question, if I could, would add, what are we doing to protect public education?
He also went on to talk about public education, the need for more investment, the problems he sees with privatizing education when it comes to jobs for the minority population. He just really hammered on education for a bit. But what about the immigration policies from the incoming Trump administration?
Well, as far as for immigration, absolutely. We're still a welcoming city. That did not change on November 5th. And it doesn't change based upon who's in the White House. And whether you are seeking refuge from Central to South America or the continent of Africa, this country has to remain a welcoming space for new arrivals and for immigrants. Now, what we do need, though, is real comprehensive immigration reform policy. That is without question. If the president-elect is truly committed to transforming this country, he would work with Congress to come up with a sensible piece of legislation that would provide more border patrol, more judges at the border to be able to respond to asylum cases. What they have done has been the opposite of that. They've tried to create chaos. Keep in mind, you all, it's unprecedented. There was an entire airplane that was sent to our city and sent to the city of Philadelphia, filled with individuals who were asylum seekers. That was one of the most reckless, irresponsible acts that I've seen in government in a very long time, right? So we will still remain a welcoming city. And same thing with healthcare. Healthcare is a human need, therefore it's a human right. And so this budget certainly reflects those values, and we do have to fight collectively as a state to generate more revenue to protect not just the city of Chicago, but to protect working people. That's what this budget.
You've got the mayor really critical of the Trump administration, saying, oh my gosh, we got a plane full of migrants. But what about when the Biden administration got rid of all of the Trump administration, the previous administration's executive orders securing the border and the millions that flooded border communities all along the Texas border and beyond, border communities that don't have the resources to handle the onslaught of non-citizen migrants crossing over the southern U.S. border. We're talking millions over the past 3.5 years. Going on almost 4 years now. Millions for Illinois. Around 50,000+ have come that we know about to the city of Chicago as a welcoming city, as the mayor says, a sanctuary city. But what about the issue of mass deportations?
Hi, Mayor.
Mayor, so the incoming president has vowed to deputize, quote-unquote, military assets to carry out his mass deportation plans. As mayor, if the president somehow deputizes military or National Guard on the streets of Chicago to assist in deportation raids, what do you do?
Well, first of all, that would be just a horrific measure to take. It would be. And I hope that the president-elect reconsiders that approach.
And he talked also about the need to collaborate with other mayors across the city, or rather across the state.
One of the things that's important that the people of Chicago know, that we have partners at the state level, at the county level. We're all going to work together to not allow the president-elect to use such extreme measures to respond to this moment. Like, we have to understand that as a society of people, we have to just treat people better. And I'm not saying that it allows for just mismanagement. Certainly we're not doing that here. In fact, when the mission began, there was no plan. We have not had a single bus arrive in the city of Chicago since last December. Our population census is under 3,000. 50,000 people have come to this city without federal support. What President-elect Trump can do is partner with mayors like me who see a pathway forward. We're calling for reparations in Chicago, as well as making sure that we create a shelter system that works for everyone and remaining a welcoming city. We don't have to pit one group against the other. And so we're going to work with our state partner, we're going to work with our county partner to ensure that our entire region becomes a model for how the world can behave. And let's not play into the fear and anxiety that unfortunately the president-elect is, quite frankly, profiting off of.
And Johnson was also asked, would he be willing to meet with incoming President Trump?
Would you want to meet with him if it meant some shared priorities for Chicago?
He's the President of the United States of America. I'm not. Look, I've had to deal with brother-in-laws. I'm just saying. It's not a difficult, dynamic to meet with the President of the United States of America. We're not going to meet at Trump Towers, though. All right.
So the mayor continued to take a series of questions. A lot of them did focus on the issue of whatever conflict may come between a city like Chicago and the incoming Trump administration. Johnson went on to react to what mayors from other parts of the country are saying when it comes to working with the Trump administration.
We've heard that other mayors, I think specifically Eric Adams in New York, are kind of reconsidering their policies with ICE and collaborating with ICE, or cooperating with ICE, I guess I should say. Do you see the city of Chicago's policies on that changing at all under Trump?
Well, look, I believe that, as I said from the beginning, we ask police officers to do too much already. I'm not going to ask the Chicago Police Department, under the direction of my Superintendent Larry Snelling, to make police officers now ICE and federal agents. That's a non-starter. And in fact, it undermines the consent decree and constitutional policing. This is about restoring trust in the communities, right? And you place police officers in a position where now the local community can't trust them. What type of society are we creating when we are exacerbating the disconnect between community and policing? It's just not responsible. Look, I understand that we have a challenge with immigration policy in this country. Pass laws. Don't make threats.
You got Johnson critical that there hasn't been any movement on immigration reform, but Republicans say immigration reform is not what's needed. border security and deportation of those who cross the border not through a port of entry but illegally need to be deported. Johnson's saying that mass deportations over immigration reform is wrong.
It would be small and soft. The president-elect should get big and large and strong, like we are in Chicago.
And some final comments here from Mayor Johnson.
He wants to dismantle public education, a system that was built by descendants of slaves, particularly in the South. He is a threat to everything that is sensible. That's why, look.
And he goes on from there. Fascinating always to hear how the Chicago mayor reacts to some of the questions in yesterday's news conference. We'll obviously keep an eye on all of that and more. Illinois in Focus Daily. Wake up each and every weekday morning here and like, subscribe, hit that notification bell with America's Talking Network. Get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus, and don't forget to get the newsletter at thecentersquare.com. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today. Haven't seen much movement on any of the litigation against Illinois gun laws. I do believe in Chicago Circuit Court, the case that the city of Chicago brought against Glock. They have a hearing today. We'll see what may come out of that, if anything. It might be just a status hearing, but we'll obviously monitor that. But a lot to tackle. So hopefully you wake up with us. It's going to be a busy day here today in Springfield at the state capitol. But we'll bring you the latest tomorrow morning here with America's Talking Network for Illinois in Focus Daily. Get the podcast, get the headlines at thecentersquare.com.